I sit in the back row of the conference room during Nest Tech Solutions' quarterly investor call. The live stream has 12,000 viewers. My heart pounds as I watch CEO Brandon Hartley smile confidently at the camera, discussing record profits and ethical business practices. In 3 minutes, my lawyer will walk through that door. In 4 minutes, everything Brandon built on lies will crumble. My phone vibrates. The text reads, "We're outside." "Are you sure about this?" My hands shake as I type back one word. "Yes." 6 months earlier, my life looked completely different. I worked as marketing manager at Nest Tech Solutions, a rising property management technology startup in Austin, Texas. The company claimed to revolutionize rental housing through their app-based platform, and I genuinely believed in the mission. After joining 2 years earlier, I'd poured my heart into creating marketing campaigns about transparent, honest property management. The irony of those words would haunt me later. Nest Tech was growing rapidly, preparing for their Series C funding round. Everyone buzzed with excitement about the company's future. As an employee benefit, I rented a luxury apartment in one of their flagship smart living buildings at a discounted rate. The 2-bedroom unit on the 15th floor in the Domain area felt like a dream. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Austin skyline. The building had a rooftop pool and everything connected through Nest Tech's own app. I could control my thermostat, pay rent, submit maintenance requests, all with a few taps on my phone. My boss, Director of Marketing Susan Crawford, praised my work constantly. She told me I'd likely get promoted to Senior Marketing Manager by summer. I felt proud working for a company that claimed to protect renters' rights and bring accountability to an industry known for shady landlords. The employee housing program seemed like an incredible perk. When I moved in, I paid $11,000 total, $2,800 for the first month, $2,800 for the last month, and $5,400 as a refundable security deposit. It was steep, but worth it for the location and amenities. Everything changed when I started dating Tyler Morrison, a software engineer I met at a tech conference in Denver. After 8 months of long-distance dating, late-night video calls, and weekend flights back and forth, he proposed. We decided I'd relocate to Denver after we got married. I was sad to leave Austin and Nest Tech, but excited for this new chapter. I checked my lease carefully. Standard 60-day notice required no penalties for early termination as long as proper notice was given. Everything seemed straightforward. On March 1st, I submitted my notice through the app. My last day at work would be April 30th, and I'd move out of the apartment the same weekend. I'd given myself plenty of time to transition my projects and train my replacement. 2 weeks after submitting notice, an email appeared in my inbox from HR Director Patricia Hammond. The subject line read, "Regarding your security deposit." My stomach dropped as I read the first sentence. "Dear Andrea, this email serves as notification that Nest Tech Solutions will be retaining the full security deposit due to breach of employee housing agreement terms." I read it 3 times, certain I'd misunderstood. Breach. What breach? I'd given proper notice, kept the apartment immaculate, never missed a rent payment. I immediately replied, asking for clarification. 5 days passed with no response. My confusion turned to worry, then anger. Finally, I marched to the HR office on the 3rd floor. Patricia sat behind her desk, perfectly composed in a gray pantsuit, her dark hair pulled back severely. When I asked about the deposit, her expression remained cold. "You're leaving the company. The housing agreement has specific clauses about employee retention," she said, her tone suggesting this should be obvious. I argued that I'd followed every rule, given proper notice, maintained the apartment perfectly. Patricia slid a document across her desk without a word. My eyes scanned the pages until I reached page 17. There, buried in dense legal language, sat a clause I'd never seen before. It stated employees forfeit all deposits if they leave within 3 years of move-in. I'd only been there 2 years and 4 months. This wasn't in my original lease agreement, I said, my voice rising. I pulled out my phone, opened the saved PDF of my original contract. Look, see, this clause doesn't exist in my version. Patricia's face hardened like concrete. That's an outdated version. You signed the updated agreement last October during the benefits renewal. I had no memory of this. I scrolled through my emails, my calendar, searched for anything from October. Nothing about updating my lease agreement. Patricia tapped her computer screen, then turned it to face me. There on the monitor was a document dated October 15th with what appeared to be my signature at the bottom. The clause was highlighted on page 17. I never saw this document. I insisted. I never signed this. The digital signature confirms otherwise. This is legally binding. Patricia stood up clearly, ending the conversation. We're keeping the security deposit. If you pursue this legally, we'll countersue for breach of contract and damage to company property. You'll owe us more than you'd recover. My advice? Accept it and move on with your life in Denver. I left her office, shaking with rage and disbelief. $11,000. Money I'd saved carefully. Money I needed for the move, for wedding expenses, for starting fresh. They were just taking it based on a document I never signed. That night I told Tyler everything. He was sympathetic but cautious. Maybe it's not worth fighting. We have savings. We can absorb the loss. But something inside me refused to accept defeat. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about right and wrong. I spent that weekend diving into Texas tenant rights law reading forums, searching for similar cases. What I discovered made my blood run cold. This type of clause, even if I had signed, it might be legally unenforceable under Texas property code. Security deposits have specific rules about what landlords can and cannot withhold. I posted in a legal advice forum anonymously describing my situation. Multiple responses suggested I had a strong case, especially if the signature was forged. Get a lawyer, they all said. Document everything. Monday morning, I contacted 3 attorneys. Their retainer fees ranged from $3,000 to $5,000. I had the money, but Tyler grew more hesitant. What if we spend $5,000 fighting for $11,000 and lose? Then we're out $16,000 total. His fear was valid, but something told me I had to try. Before hiring a lawyer, I decided to go directly to CEO Brandon Hartley. Maybe this was a mistake, a misunderstanding. Maybe Brandon, who always talked about ethical business practices, didn't know what his HR department was doing. I crafted a professional, detailed email explaining the situation. I attached both versions of my lease agreement, highlighting the discrepancy. I requested a meeting to resolve this fairly and amicably. Monday evening, I pressed send. Tuesday afternoon, Susan Crawford called me into her office. The moment I walked in, I knew something had shifted. Susan's warm demeanor had vanished, replaced by icy professionalism. I heard you went over my head. And Patricia's head straight to Brandon, she said, not inviting me to sit. That's not how we handle things here, Andrea. I tried to explain, but Susan cut me off. We're concerned about your commitment during this transition period. Your work performance has been slipping. This was news to me. My performance reviews had always been excellent. We're putting you on a performance improvement plan effective immediately. You'll submit daily reports of all work activities. Also, your access to several marketing systems will be temporarily restricted. Temporarily restricted. That meant I couldn't do half my job. How was I supposed to improve my performance when they'd just sabotaged my ability to work? Over the next few days, the situation deteriorated rapidly. Coworkers who'd been friendly suddenly avoided me. I was removed from group chats, excluded from project meetings. Someone started a rumor that I'd been stealing company resources. My work computer seemed to run slower files I needed mysteriously went missing. Then my friend and mentor fellow marketer Jessica Palmer pulled me aside in the parking lot after work. She glanced around nervously before speaking. "They're building a case against you," she whispered. "Be careful. They did this to someone else last year. I can't say more, but please watch your back." Jessica hurried to her car before I could ask questions, but her warning terrified me. What case? For what? That night I started digging into Nestech's history. Public records showed a lawsuit from 18 months earlier. A former employee named Marcus Wellington had sued the company for similar issues. The case settled out of court with an NDA. I couldn't find details, but the pattern was emerging. I found an old email address for Marcus through a cached web page from a conference he'd spoken at. Taking a chance, I reached out explaining my situation and asking if he'd experienced something similar. 2 agonizing days passed before Marcus replied from a new email account. His message made my hands go cold. They do this to multiple employees. They systematically forge updated agreements, keep deposits, then destroy anyone who fights back. I lost $8,000. They threatened to blacklist me in the tech industry. I had a wife and 2 kids to support. I couldn't risk it. I settled for $4,000 just to make it go away. The NDA means I can't give you details, but please document everything. They're sloppy. If you can prove the signature was forged, you might actually have a shot. But be warned, they have lawyers on retainer. They'll bury you in paperwork and legal fees until you give up. They're counting on you giving up. His email ended with, "I'm rooting for you, but I can't help publicly. I'm sorry." I sat staring at my computer screen, Marcus's words echoing in my mind. They'd done this before. They'd do it again. How many people had they stolen from? Wednesday morning, I received a certified letter at my apartment. My hands shook as I opened it. Nestech's legal department was threatening to sue me for $11,500, claiming I damaged the apartment. This was completely false. I had photos from my move-in inspection and recent photos showing the apartment's perfect condition, but the letter's real threat came in the second paragraph. They'd discovered I'd violated my employment contract by sharing confidential company information with outside parties. They meant the lawyer consultations I'd made, the forums I'd posted in reaching out to Marcus. They were threatening to terminate my employment immediately for cause. No severance, no references, potentially blocking me from working in property tech anywhere. The letter gave me until Friday to sign a release waiver dropping all complaints. If I refused, they'd file suit Monday morning. It was Wednesday. I had 2 days to decide, walk away from $11,000 and my dignity, or fight and risk losing everything else too. I called Tyler that night, crying so hard I could barely speak. I don't know what to do. I can't afford a legal battle, but I can't let them win. Tyler's silence stretched too long. Finally, he said, "Maybe you should just sign the waiver. We'll start fresh in Denver. This isn't worth destroying your career." His words felt like betrayal, even though I knew he was trying to protect me. But something inside me, some core of stubbornness or principle, or maybe just rage, refused to surrender. Friday came and went. I didn't sign the waiver. I waited all weekend for the lawsuit that never came. They'd been bluffing, using fear as a weapon. That realization changed everything. If they were bluffing, it meant they didn't want this in court any more than I did, which meant they were vulnerable. Monday morning I went to work as usual, though my stomach churned with anxiety. I needed to find a lawyer who'd take my case, someone who believed in it enough to fight. Through Marcus's careful recommendation, avoiding anything that would violate his NDA, I contacted attorney Rachel Winters. She ran a solo practice specializing in employment law and tenant rights. Her office was small but professional, located in a converted house near downtown Austin. Rachel was in her early 40s with sharp eyes and an intensity that immediately put me at ease. She reviewed my documents for an hour, asking pointed questions, taking notes. Finally, she looked up. "This signature doesn't match your other signatures on file. Look here and here." She pointed to my initials on various documents. "The loop on your A is completely different. The slant is wrong. If we can prove forgery, this case becomes huge." She agreed to take my case on contingency, 30% of any recovery plus expenses. No upfront costs, which was the only way I could afford to fight. "I need you to gather more evidence," Rachel explained. "Any communications, calendar invitations, anything from October 15th. We need to prove you couldn't have signed this document." I provided everything I had. Rachel found gold almost immediately. "You were out of state at a marketing conference, October 15th. How did you sign this document in person?" My calendar clearly showed I'd been in San Francisco for 3 days in mid-October. The conference registration, the hotel booking, even my flight records proved I was 1,000 miles away when I supposedly signed the updated lease. Rachel smiled for the first time. "They got sloppy. This is good." She started digging deeper, pulling public records on Nestec. 4 other current or former employees had similar situations buried in court filings. One of them, former maintenance supervisor Gary Stone, agreed to speak with us off the record. We met Gary at a coffee shop in Round Rock, far from downtown Austin. He was in his 50s, tired, looking defeated. His story mirrored mine almost exactly. He'd given notice they'd kept his $8,000 deposit he'd tried to fight. They'd crushed him with legal threats and forced him out. HR Director Patricia Hammond runs the whole operation, Gary explained quietly. She's been doing it for years. The CEO knows but looks the other way because it pads their profits. They target people who are leaving anyway. They figure most won't fight. The ones who do, they destroy with legal intimidation. Rachel asked if he'd testify if needed. Gary looked terrified. "I can't. I signed an NDA. They'll sue me for everything. But I hope you win. Someone needs to stop them." Rachel then hired a digital forensics expert named Thomas Brennan to analyze the supposedly signed document. After 2 days of analysis, Thomas delivered his report in person. This signature was digitally copied from another document and pasted onto this one. "Look at the pixel structure here." He showed us the technical details. Furthermore, the metadata shows this document was actually created in November, not October. Someone backdated it. Rachel's eyes lit up. "This is fraud. Clear, prosecutable fraud." We had them. Real evidence, expert testimony, proof of forgery. I felt hope for the first time in weeks. Then Nestec struck back harder than I could have imagined. Wednesday morning, Susan Crawford called me into her office. CEO Brandon Hartley was there, along with Patricia Hammond, and an unfamiliar man in an expensive suit. The man was introduced as corporate attorney Leonard Fisher. Brandon spoke with cold finality. Andrea, we're terminating your employment effective immediately for cause. The reasons listed felt like a nightmare. Performance issues, insubordination, sharing confidential information, creating a hostile work environment. All lies, all documented in fabricated reports I'd never seen. Within 15 minutes, 2 security guards escorted me out. I couldn't access my computer, couldn't retrieve personal files, couldn't say goodbye to anyone. My badge was deactivated, my work phone confiscated. They walked me through the office like a criminal, while coworkers stared. That afternoon, a company-wide email went out referencing personnel matters and protecting company integrity. My phone exploded with texts from coworkers asking what happened. Rumors spread that I'd been fired for theft, for fraud, for things I'd never done. Someone even created a fake social media account impersonating me, posting bizarre and damaging content. My professional reputation was being destroyed in real time. Then that evening, everything got worse. An email arrived from an anonymous account. The message contained my parents' address in Dallas, Tyler's workplace information in Denver, my younger sister's name, and the college she attended. The email read, "Drop the lawsuit, or everyone you love will suffer. We know where they are. We know everything about you." Attached was a photo of me walking to my car that very afternoon, taken from across the parking lot. Someone had been following me, watching me. I called Rachel immediately, my voice shaking so badly I could barely speak. Rachel was furious. "This is criminal intimidation. We're filing a police report tonight. This changes everything. They're not just unethical anymore, they're dangerous." But I was terrified. The threat wasn't subtle. They'd included my family's information for a reason. What if they actually hurt someone I loved? Tyler called from Denver, his voice tight with fear and anger. "Andrea, this is insane. These people are threatening us. Just drop it, please. It's not worth your life. We'll figure out the money some other way." I sat on my bathroom floor that night, crying until I had no tears left. I'd lost my job, my reputation, my sense of safety. Now I was risking my family's safety too. For what? For $11,000, for principal. But even through the fear, I couldn't shake the thought, if I quit now, they win. They keep doing this to other people. The next victim might not fight at all because no one before them ever won. I was terrified, but I wasn't done yet. Rachel and I filed a police report about the threats with Detective Maria Santos. She was sympathetic, but realistic. Anonymous email accounts and vague threats are difficult to prosecute. Unless they make a direct move, my hands are tied. But I'm documenting everything. Vary your routine. Consider staying elsewhere. Temporarily be aware of your surroundings. I took her advice and moved in with Jessica Palmer temporarily. Jessica was scared, but wanted to help. "Someone needs to stand up to them," she whispered when I arrived at her apartment with my suitcase. 3 days later, I received a message through LinkedIn from someone named Diane Foster. The name sounded vaguely familiar. The message was brief. "I heard through the grapevine what they're doing to you. We need to talk. In person. Tonight. This can't wait." I looked up Diane Foster. She'd been Nestec's chief financial officer until 8 months ago. She'd left under circumstances the company never explained publicly. Meeting a stranger felt risky given the threats, but something told me this was important. We met at a coffee shop in Round Rock, far from Austin proper. Diane was in her early 50s, professionally dressed, but with shadows under her eyes. She looked like someone carrying a heavy secret. "I know what Brandon and Patricia are doing to you," she began without preamble. The security deposit theft is just the tip of the iceberg. They're running multiple fraud schemes. For the next hour, Diane explained everything. She'd been forced out when she discovered Nestec was committing massive financial fraud. They were inflating occupancy rates to investors, reporting fake revenue, hiding maintenance costs, and cooking the books systematically. They're preparing for their Series C funding round, $50 million. But the company is actually hemorrhaging money. They're stealing security deposits to cover cash flow problems. The buildings are falling apart, but they report them as premium luxury properties with massive profit margins. Diane's hands shook as she spoke. I wanted to go public, but they threatened my family. I was a single mother with 2 daughters in college. I couldn't risk it. I took the settlement and signed an NDA, but I kept copies of everything. Insurance. She pulled a USB drive from her purse and slid it across the table. Everything's on here. Financial statements, emails, board meeting recordings, real numbers versus what they're telling investors. If you expose the investor fraud, the whole company collapses. Brandon goes to prison. Patricia goes to prison. Everyone gets justice. I stared at the small device. Why are you doing this? The NDA means they could sue you for millions. Diane's eyes filled with tears. Because it's right. And because I can't live with myself knowing they're about to scam investors out of $50 million. Pension funds, retirement accounts, people who trust them. It's evil. I've been waiting for someone brave enough to use this information. You're that person. She stood to leave, looking around nervously. The investor call is April 28th. That's when they're closing the Series C funding. If you expose this during the call in front of everyone, it stops the fraud in real time. Be careful, Andrea. They're more dangerous than you know. Rachel and I spent 2 full days reviewing the USB drive contents. It was devastating evidence. Spreadsheets showing real versus reported occupancy rates. Emails between Brandon and Patricia explicitly discussing how to hide losses. Board meeting audio recordings where they planned the fraud schemes in detail. This is securities fraud, Rachel said, her voice filled with awe and horror. This is federal prison time. We're not talking about your $11,000 anymore. We're talking about protecting investors from losing $50 million. She contacted the SEC anonymously, tipping them off to investigate. She also reached out to a journalist friend at the Austin American-Statesman, giving them a heads up that a major story was coming. We planned our strategy carefully. I would attend the investor call, which was open to employees, and live-streamed publicly. Rachel would serve Brandon with legal notice during the stream, exposing everything in real time. The public nature would prevent Nestec from burying the evidence or threatening us into silence. They can't silence you if 12,000 people are watching live, Rachel explained. But Nestec wasn't finished attacking. 3 days before the investor call, someone broke into my apartment. Nothing valuable was stolen, but my laptop and paper files were gone. Spray painted across my bedroom wall. In red, "Last Warning." I called Detective Santos immediately. She came with a full forensics team, but they found no fingerprints, no evidence. They're escalating because they're desperate, she told me. That means you're winning. But it also means they're dangerous. Please be extremely careful. Rachel's office was broken into the next night. Computers damaged, files stolen. But Rachel had backed up everything to secure cloud storage. They're trying to stop us, but they're too late. We have everything we need. The night before the investor call, my phone rang. Tyler's name appeared on the screen. My heart jumped. We hadn't spoken in 3 days. Someone came to my office today, Tyler said, without greeting. His voice sounded strained, angry, asking questions about you. They claimed they're private investigators working on a fraud case. They implied you're the one committing fraud. My stomach dropped. Tyler, you know that's not true. You know what they're doing. My boss pulled me aside, Andrea. He asked if I was involved in anything illegal. This is affecting my job now, my career. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Drop the lawsuit, Tyler finally said. Drop everything. I'm asking you to choose. Me and our future together, or this fight that's consuming everything? Tears streamed down my face. I have to do this. Tyler, it's not just about me anymore. If I don't stop them, they'll keep hurting people. They'll steal $50 million. Don't you see? What I see is that you care more about being right than about us. His voice was cold, distant. I can't do this anymore, Andrea. I can't watch you destroy yourself. I can't have my life destroyed too. So that's it. You're leaving me. You're choosing this crusade over me. That's you leaving me. He paused. I'm sorry. I really am. But I'm done. The line went dead. I collapsed onto Jessica's couch, sobbing so hard I thought I'd break. I'd lost everything. My job, my reputation, my safety, my savings, and now the man I'd planned to marry. I was utterly alone, facing powerful enemies who wanted to destroy me. Jessica sat beside me, holding me while I cried. You can still stop, she whispered. No one would blame you. But even through the devastation, through the fear and loneliness and grief, I knew I couldn't stop. I'd sacrificed too much to quit now. And somewhere deep inside, beneath all the pain, I knew I was doing the right thing. Tomorrow I would walk into that conference room. Tomorrow I would face Brandon Hartley in front of the world. Tomorrow the truth would come out no matter what it cost me. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Tyler's face, heard his words. You're choosing this crusade over me. Maybe he was right. Maybe I was destroying myself and everyone around me for something that couldn't be won. Jessica made me coffee at 6 in the morning, neither of us speaking much. She had to go to work at Nestec, had to pretend everything was normal. Before she left, she hugged me tightly. You're the bravest person I know, she said. Whatever happens today, I'm proud to know you. I showered and dressed carefully, choosing a navy blue pantsuit and white blouse, armor for battle. My hands shook as I buttoned the shirt. Rachel called at 8. Today we make history, she said. Her confidence steadied me. Are you ready? As ready as I'll ever be, I whispered. The investor call was scheduled for 2 in the afternoon at Nestec headquarters. The large conference room on the 5th floor would host the in-person attendees, with the presentation live-streamed on the company website and multiple investment platforms. Rachel explained that 25 investors were expected in person, with hundreds more watching online. Brandon would present the Series C funding opportunity. Patricia Hammond and interim CFO Douglas Reed would present the supposedly stellar financials. The call typically lasted 90 minutes, with question and answer time at the end. I arrived at headquarters at 1:30, my heart pounding so hard I felt dizzy. The moment I stepped through the glass doors, security stopped me. Your badge is deactivated, the guard said, checking his computer. You're not an employee anymore. I forced my voice to stay steady. The investor call is open to the public. It's advertised on your website. The guard looked uncertain and called upstairs. Minutes later, Patricia Hammond appeared in the lobby. When she saw me, her face flushed with anger. She's banned from this property. Escort her out immediately. I stood my ground. This is a publicly announced investor event. If you forcibly remove me without cause, I'll call the media and police. Do you really want that scene broadcast right now, right before your big funding call?" Patricia and I stared at each other, the hatred between us palpable. Finally, she spoke through gritted teeth. "Fine. But any disruption, and you're gone. Security will be watching you." She turned and stalked back to the elevators. The guard looked uncomfortable but waved me through. The conference room was already set up with cameras and lighting for the live stream. Investors mingled, chatting, casually drinking coffee from the catering table. I slipped into a seat in the back row, trying to be invisible. Susan Crawford spotted me almost immediately. Her eyes widened, then narrowed. She crossed the room to whisper something to Brandon Hartley. Brandon glanced back at me, his expression cold and warning. I met his gaze and didn't look away. At 2:00 sharp, the live stream began. The viewer count climbed rapidly. 8,000, 10,000, 12,000 people watching. Brandon launched into his presentation with his trademark charisma. Nest Tech Solutions is revolutionizing property management through technology and transparency. The words made me sick. Transparency. What a joke. He presented growth charts, occupancy rates, revenue projections, every number a lie, every graph built on fraud. Investors nodded approvingly, asked softball questions. Patricia Hammond took over, presenting the financial statements with Douglas Reed beside her. More lies wrapped in professional presentations. My hands clenched in my lap. Where was Rachel? She was supposed to arrive at 2:15, 15 minutes into the presentation. I checked my phone. 2:15 passed. 2:20. Still nothing. Panic rose in my throat. What if something had happened? What if they'd gotten to Rachel, too? I texted, "Where are you?" No response. 2:25. The presentation continued smoothly. Brandon was winning, charming the room, about to secure $50 million based on complete fraud. At 2:30, Brandon opened the floor for investor questions. A man in the third row raised his hand. "Mr. Hartley, I have a question about employee retention and company culture." Brandon smiled confidently. "We pride ourselves on our amazing culture and treating our team like family." The investor continued. "Then why is there a former employee sitting in this room who has filed a frivolous lawsuit claiming fraud?" He gestured directly at me. The room fell silent. Every head turned to stare. My blood went ice cold. This investor was working with Nest Tech. This was a setup. Brandon's face showed mock concern. "I'm glad you brought that up, Harold. We do have a disgruntled former employee who was terminated for cause. She's attempting to extort the company through baseless legal claims. We've tried to handle this privately, but she's refused every reasonable offer." Harold Greenfield from Pinnacle Ventures nodded sympathetically. "Do you have documentation proving her termination was legitimate?" Brandon nodded gravely. "Absolutely. Patricia, please distribute the file." Patricia began handing thick folders to every investor. They contained fabricated performance reviews, falsified documentation, manufactured evidence of my supposed misconduct. I watched my character assassination happening in real time. Brandon addressed me directly. "Andrea, I'm giving you one last chance. Apologize publicly for these false accusations. Withdraw your lawsuit. Sign the release. We'll let all of this go, and you can move on with your life." 12,000 plus viewers were watching. Hundreds of comments flooded the live stream chat. I felt every eye in the room on me. I stood up, my legs shaking. "I won't apologize for telling the truth." Brandon's expression hardened. "Then you've made your choice. Security, please. Escort this woman out of the building." 2 security guards started moving toward me from the side door. This was it. I was about to be thrown out. We'd lost. All of this for nothing. Then the main conference room door opened. Rachel Winters walked in flanked by 2 people wearing FBI windbreakers. Behind them came Detective Maria Santos in her police uniform. The room froze. Rachel's voice cut through the silence like a blade. "Nobody touch my client." She strode to the front of the room carrying a leather folder. The FBI agents positioned themselves at the exits. No one was leaving. Brandon's confident mask cracked for the first time. His face went pale, then flushed red. Rachel opened her folder and slid documents in front of Brandon on the presentation table. "My name is Rachel Winters, attorney for Andrea Thompson. I have a legal notice for Mr. Brandon Hartley and Miss Brandon Hartley and Miss Brandon Hartley and Mr. Brandon. Patricia Hammond." The live stream cameras captured everything. The viewer count jumped. 15,000, 17,000. Rachel leaned close to Brandon and whispered something in his ear. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw his reaction. His face drained of all color. His hands trembled as he picked up the notice and began reading. An investor from the front row called out, "Is there a problem?" Brandon couldn't speak. He just raised a shaking hand and pointed at me, his finger trembling, his mouth opening and closing soundlessly. Rachel turned to face the cameras. "What you're about to hear is the truth about Nest Tech Solutions." The conference room felt like it was holding its breath. Rachel connected her laptop to the main screen, replacing Brandon's polished presentation with cold, hard evidence. "The notice Mr. Hartley just received," Rachel announced clearly, "informs him that his company is under investigation by the FBI for securities fraud, wire fraud, and racketeering. Additionally, he and Miss Securities fraud, wire fraud, Hammond are being sued for fraud, forgery, theft, criminal intimidation, and wrongful termination." Gasps rippled through the investors. Brandon tried to stand, tried to speak. "This is absurd. This is a coordinated attack." FBI agent Carson stepped forward. "Mr. Hartley, I strongly advise you to remain silent. Everything you say is being live-streamed and can be used against you in court." Brandon's mouth snapped shut. Rachel pulled up the first set of images on the screen. 2 signatures side by side. This is my client's real signature on multiple verified documents. And this is the signature on the supposedly updated lease agreement from October 15th. Notice the differences, the loop structure, the angle, the pressure points. She clicked to the next slide. "This is the report from our digital forensics expert, Thomas Brennan." Thomas appeared on a video call window. "Mr. Brennan, please explain what you found." Thomas, professional and precise, walked through his analysis. The signature was digitally copied from another document and pasted onto this lease. The pixel structure shows clear evidence of manipulation. Furthermore, the metadata reveals this document was created in November, not October. Someone backdated it after the fact. Patricia Hammond suddenly moved toward the door. FBI agent Carson blocked her path. "Everyone stays until this presentation is complete, ma'am." Rachel advanced to the next slide. "But this isn't just about my client's $11,000. This is about systematic fraud on a massive scale." She displayed the financial documents from Diane's USB drive. Side-by-side comparisons filled the screen. On the left, what Nest Tech reported to investors. On the right, the real numbers. The differences were staggering. Occupancy rates reported 92% actual, 68%. Revenue reported $38 million, actual $19 million. Maintenance costs reported $2 million, actual $8 million. This company is not profitable, Rachel stated flatly. It's bleeding money, and they were about to take $50 million from you based on complete fabrications. Investors were standing now, angry voices overlapping. Harold Greenfield from Pinnacle Ventures tried a different tactic. This could all be fabricated. Where's your proof? This data is authentic. Rachel smiled coldly. I'm glad you asked Mr. Greenfield. Or should I say Mr. Greenfield, Patricia Hammond's brother-in-law. She displayed a marriage certificate on screen. Patricia Hammond married to James Greenfield in 2018. Harold Greenfield listed as James's brother on the wedding registry. You're not a real investor. You're a plant, part of the fraud. Harold's face went from red to white. Other investors turned on him, shouting questions, demanding answers. Rachel let the chaos build for a moment, then raised her hand for silence. There's more. I have video testimony from Nestech's former chief financial officer, Diane Foster. The screen showed Diane sitting in a simple room, speaking directly to the camera. Her voice was steady but emotional. My name is Diane Foster. I was CFO of Nestech Solutions until 8 months ago, when I was forced out for refusing to participate in fraud. Brandon Hartley and Patricia Hammond systematically falsify financial records. They inflate numbers to attract investors, while the company crumbles. They steal security deposits from employees to cover cash flow shortfalls. I know of at least 12 employees who lost money through their schemes. I was offered a settlement and NDA to keep quiet. I took it because I was scared, but I can't stay silent while they prepare to steal $50 million from innocent investors. The video testimony was damning. Diane detailed specific incidents, named names, provided context that only an insider could know. When it finished, the room erupted. Investors shouted at Brandon, demanding explanations. Douglas Reed, the interim CFO, stood up, face pale. I had no knowledge of any of this. I've been here 2 months. Everything I was told was a lie. Susan Crawford looked sick. I didn't know about the financial fraud. I thought it was just aggressive HR tactics. I'm so sorry. She was looking at me. The company was imploding. People turned on each other, scrambling for cover. Rachel played the final piece of evidence. Audio from a board meeting 6 months earlier. Brandon's voice came through clearly. We need to increase cash flow. Before Series C, Patricia, target 5 more employees for the deposit retention program. Make sure the documentation is airtight this time. Last few attempts were sloppy. Patricia's voice responded. Understood. I'll handle it personally. The audio was unmistakable, undeniable. Brandon's own words condemning him. Brandon looked at Patricia, betrayed. You recorded board meetings? Patricia, panicking, turned on him. You made me do this. You said it was legal. You said it was just aggressive business. She was crying now, mascara streaking her face. Another person entered the room. A woman in a professional suit holding federal credentials. I'm Margaret Chen, investigator with the Securities and Exchange Commission. I'm here to inform you that all Nestech Solutions accounts are frozen pending investigation. The Series C funding round is canceled. All current investor agreements are under review. Brandon slumped in his chair, all fight gone. Patricia sobbed openly. FBI agent Carson approached them both. Mr. Hartley. Miss Hammond, you're not under arrest at this moment, but you need to come with us for questioning. Rachel gestured for me to come forward. My legs barely supported me as I walked to the front. The live stream now showed 23,000 viewers. Rachel handed me the microphone. For a moment I couldn't speak. Then words came quiet at first, growing stronger. 6 months ago, I was proud to work here. I believed in this company's mission. When they stole my security deposit, I thought it was a mistake. Then I realized it was intentional. Then systematic. Then part of something much bigger. I looked at Brandon. You could have just given me my money back. That's all I wanted. But you threatened me, terrorized me, destroyed my reputation, ruined my relationship, made me fear for my life. My voice broke, but I pushed through. You forgot something, though. You forgot that some people can't be silenced. Some people believe truth matters more than money, or safety, or comfort. I turned to the cameras. If you're watching this and Nest Tech owes you money or wronged you or lied to you, come forward. You're not alone anymore. They can't hurt us all. The room erupted in applause. Investors were clapping. Even some Nest Tech employees in the doorway applauded. My phone rang. An unknown number. Something made me answer, putting it on speaker. Andrea. It's Tyler. My heart stopped. His voice was thick with emotion. I'm watching the live stream. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I doubted you. I'm so sorry I wasn't there. You were right about everything. I was scared, and I failed you when you needed me most. Tears streamed down my face. Tyler. I'm already on a flight to Austin. I land in 2 hours. I'm coming to you, if you'll still have me. I could barely speak through the tears. I'll be here. Rachel squeezed my shoulder. The room applauded again. Brandon and Patricia were led out by FBI agents and policed their careers and freedom, ending in front of 25,000 live stream viewers. News vans were already pulling up outside the building. The story was going viral in real time. I had won. 3 months later, on a warm July afternoon, I sat in my new office overlooking downtown Austin. The view was different, but just as beautiful as the one from my old apartment. Everything had changed since that April day when truth finally defeated lies. The immediate aftermath felt like a whirlwind. The live stream video went viral, hitting 3 million views in the first week. The Austin American-Statesman ran a front-page story, tech startup CEO exposed in live fraud scandal. National media picked it up. CNN, MSNBC, The Wall Street Journal, all covered the story. My phone wouldn't stop ringing with interview requests. Nest Tech Solutions declared bankruptcy within 2 weeks. The company that had seemed so powerful, so untouchable, collapsed under the weight of its own corruption. Brandon Hartley and Patricia Hammond were formally arrested and charged with multiple federal crimes: securities fraud, wire fraud, identity theft, racketeering. Harold Greenfield was charged as a co-conspirator. Within days of the live stream, 47 former employees contacted Rachel. They'd all lost security deposits. The amounts totaled over $400,000. Many had been threatened and intimidated into silence just like me. Rachel filed a class action lawsuit. Marcus Wellington finally came forward, publicly free from his NDA since the criminal nature of the fraud voided all those agreements. Gary Stone joined too. Diane Foster, who'd risked everything by providing the evidence, became a key witness for both the criminal prosecution and civil suits. The FBI investigation expanded beyond what anyone expected. They discovered the fraud stretched back 7 years with over 200 victims total, including both employees and regular tenants. The total fraud exceeded $2 million. Bank records showed Brandon and Patricia had been funneling money into offshore accounts preparing to flee the country once they secured the Series C funding. They'd planned to disappear with $50 million. For me personally, the resolution came faster than I'd dared hope. The bankruptcy court seized Nestec's assets to pay creditors and victims. I received my full $11,000 deposit back within 6 weeks, plus $10,000 in damages for the harassment and wrongful termination. My attorney fees were covered too. The class action settlement eventually paid out $1.8 million distributed among all the victims. I donated half of my settlement to a nonprofit supporting tenant rights. After everything I'd been through, I knew others needed that money more than I did. Tyler arrived in Austin that night, rushing from the airport straight to find me. Our reunion was tearful and emotional. He apologized over and over. I should have believed in you. I should have stood by you. I was a coward. I forgave him because I understood. Fear makes people do things they regret. What mattered was that he came back, that he saw the truth, that he wanted to make it right. A week later, he proposed again, properly this time. We were walking along the river at sunset when he got down on one knee. Marry me. For real this time. I want to spend my life being the person who deserves you, the person who stands beside you no matter what. I said yes without hesitation. We got married in September, 5 months after the exposure. It was a small ceremony with 50 guests in a garden venue south of Austin. Rachel was one of my bridesmaids. Diane Foster came looking lighter, somehow freed from the burden of her secret. Marcus Wellington and Gary Stone attended too. Even Jessica Palmer was there, having left Nestec to join me at my new job. It felt less like just a wedding, and more like a celebration of justice, courage, and truth prevailing. Tyler found a new job in Austin, deciding Denver could wait. "Where you are is home," he told me. Professionally, my life transformed in ways I never imagined. 3 different companies offered me positions after the publicity, but I chose something that felt more meaningful. I accepted a role as Director of Communications at a tenants' rights advocacy organization. My marketing skills could finally serve a purpose. I believed in giving voice to renters facing injustice across Texas. Susan Crawford, my former boss, reached out to apologize. I really didn't know about the financial fraud. I thought Patricia's department just had aggressive policies. "I'm sorry I didn't support you or question what was happening." I accepted her apology, but we never became close. Some bridges once burned can't be fully rebuilt. Justice moved forward steadily. Brandon Hartley eventually pleaded guilty to avoid trial, facing overwhelming evidence. He was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison and ordered to pay $2.3 million in restitution. Patricia Hammond also pleaded guilty, receiving 6 years. Harold Greenfield got 4 years probation and community service. Their assets were seized: houses, cars, bank accounts, everything. Their professional reputations destroyed permanently. They'd never work in business again. Multiple civil lawsuits continued beyond the criminal cases. Brandon and Patricia would be paying victims for the rest of their lives. The broader impact surprised me most. Texas legislators, responding to public outrage, passed new laws protecting tenant security deposits and requiring more transparency in property management. Some people started calling it Andrea's Law informally, though the official name was different. The property management industry faced increased scrutiny and regulation statewide. I started a blog documenting tenant rights issues, sharing resources, connecting people with legal help. Within months, it reached thousands of readers. I received messages daily from people across the country telling me I'd inspired them to fight back against unfair landlords, corrupt employers, systems designed to exploit them. Now, 3 months after that investor call, I sat in my office on a Thursday afternoon reflecting on everything. I thought about the moment I almost gave up. The nights I cried myself to sleep, terrified and alone. The moment Tyler left me. The threats against my family. The stalking, the intimidation, the systematic destruction of my reputation. But I also remembered the moment Rachel walked through that door with the FBI, the moment Brandon's face went white as he realized he'd lost, the moment truth won. I learned so much through this nightmare. Truth is more powerful than money threats or fear. Brandon and Patricia had lawyers, resources, and institutional power. I had only the truth, and the truth won. It won because I refused to let it be silenced no matter the cost. I learned that standing alone makes you strong. There were days I stood completely alone. I lost my job, my relationship, my sense of safety. But standing alone taught me that I'm stronger than I ever knew. Yes, people helped me. Rachel, Diane, Marcus, Jessica, Detective Santos. But the decision to fight was mine alone. Making that decision when everyone said I should quit, when quitting seemed like the only rational choice, taught me who I really am. I'm someone who doesn't give up, someone who believes right matters more than convenient. I learned that justice takes courage. Justice doesn't happen automatically. Someone has to be brave enough to demand it. Someone has to be willing to sacrifice comfort, safety, relationships, and peace for what's right. Many victims stayed silent because they were scared. I don't judge them. Fear is real and valid. But I'm grateful I chose courage over fear, even when courage felt impossible. I learned that your voice matters. I'm one person, an ordinary marketing manager with no special power or influence. But my voice speaking truth changed everything. It brought down a corrupt company, put criminals in prison, protected investors from losing $50 million, and helped 200 victims get justice. I gave other victims permission to speak by speaking first. Your voice can do the same for someone else. Never underestimate the power of one person telling the truth. I learned that evil relies on silence. Brandon and Patricia ran their schemes for 7 years because they silenced people. Through threats, NDAs, intimidation, legal fees, they created a wall of silence around their crimes. Silence protected them. Silence enabled them. The moment I broke that silence, their power crumbled. If you're facing injustice, break the silence. Tell someone you trust. Document everything. Find an ally. Reach out for help. Silence protects abusers, never victims. I learned that sometimes you lose everything before you win. I lost my job, my relationship, my sense of safety, my peace of mind, my reputation. It felt like losing everything that mattered. But those losses were temporary. Justice was permanent. Tyler came back. My reputation was restored and enhanced. My life rebuilt stronger and more purposeful than before. When you're in the middle of fighting, when you're losing everything, it's hard to see that losing can be a step toward ultimate victory. Don't give up when you're losing. Hold on, keep fighting. The win might be just ahead. I looked at my wedding ring, simple gold, reflecting the afternoon sunlight. I looked at the framed photo on my desk, captured from the live stream the moment Rachel walked through that conference room door. My moment of salvation and vindication. If I could go back to that day in March when Patricia told me they were keeping my deposit, would I change anything? Knowing everything I'd go through, all the pain and fear and loss, would I still fight? Yes. Absolutely yes. Because that moment led to this one. A moment where I know exactly who I am, what I stand for, and what I'm capable of. They tried to steal my money, my dignity, my voice. Instead, they revealed my strength. They showed me I'm capable of standing up to powerful people and winning. They taught me that ordinary people can achieve extraordinary justice when they refuse to give up. My phone buzzed. A message from a woman in Houston. I saw your story online. My landlord is doing something similar, keeping deposits illegally, threatening people who complain. Because of you, I'm fighting back. I found a lawyer. I'm not backing down. Thank you for showing me it's possible to win. I typed back immediately. You're braver than you know. Document everything. Don't let them intimidate you. Stand your ground. I'm here if you need support or advice. You've got this. I looked out at Austin's skyline, at the city I'd chosen to stay in and fight for. The fight continues. Injustice doesn't end because one corrupt company fell. But now I know how to fight. I know that truth matters. Courage works, and justice is possible when people refuse to be silenced. They tried to steal $11,000 from me. Instead, they gave me something far more valuable. They showed me who I am when everything is on the line. They showed me I'm someone who stands up, someone who doesn't back down, someone who believes truth and justice matter more than comfort or safety. And that knowledge, that certainty about who I am is worth more than any amount of money they could have stolen. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever faced a situation where you had to choose between staying silent or speaking up against injustice? What did you do? How did it turn out? Drop your story in the comments below. Your experience might inspire someone else who's struggling with a similar decision right now. If this story moved you or made you think, please hit that like button. It helps more people find this message. And if you believe in the power of standing up for what's right, subscribe to this channel and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Together we create a community where truth matters and courage is celebrated. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that you're stronger than you think, your voice matters more than you know, and justice is always worth fighting for. Stay strong, stay true, and never let anyone silence your truth.